You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.
Join us now for the expert source for inside information on the options markets. It's time for Options Insider Radio with your host, Mark Longo.
All right, everybody. That music means it is Interview Tuesday once again. Time for our Options Insider Radio program, the interview program here on the old network, where we welcome on guests from throughout the world of options and derivatives and proceed to pick their brains for the benefit of you, the listener. My name is Mark Longo from theoptionsinsider.com, as well as, of course, from the aforementioned network. Hope you all enjoyed the massive Option Block 1000th episode spectacular that aired yesterday. I'm amazed I still have a voice talking for 3+ straight hours. Plus, you also got a little Easter egg at the end of that. You got the full first episode of the Option Block in all its glory, 1,000 episodes ago, over 10 years ago now, September of 2010. So crazy times out there, but that was fun. Hope you all enjoyed. Hope you all are also enjoying. Seems like you certainly are, the launch of the latest edition, the latest wrinkle to the network, Options Insider Plus and Options Insider Pro. You guys can, of course, check out more information about all that cool stuff, theoptionsinsider.com/shop. New link just went live yesterday. So a lot of fun stuff. It's been the first major upgrade to the network in pretty much about 14 years. So it's pretty exciting. A lot of fun stuff to come there. You also have a lot of fun stuff in store for you on the show today. Let's see who's joining us in the old hot seat. Today we are joined by a newcomer to the program and indeed to the network. She is Karina Mattis, the head of Wealth Management's Advisory Managed Option Strategies over there at UBS. Karina, welcome to the Options Insider Radio program.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you so much for having me on.
And Karina, as we are wont to do with all of our first-timers here on the network, why don't you go ahead and give our audience a little bit of an overview of your background in the options and derivatives markets, as well as what it is you do day to day at UBS.
Sure. So I've historically been working in wealth management. I've always been in the home office, working specifically with the products that our financial advisors and investors use within their asset allocations and portfolios. I've worked at 3 broker-dealers. Morgan Stanley was the bulk of the beginning of my career, Credit Suisse, and now UBS. So for the better part of the last 15 years, I've been derivative-based. I spent over a decade in structured products. And now at UBS, I head a discretionary platform that supports investment managers who trade option strategies for our clients.
And how popular is the options product over there at UBS? We talked to a lot of different wealth management firms over the years, and a lot of them have, fair to say, varying approaches to the options product. Some view it as maybe they don't really want to get involved in it, but they offer it a little bit for maybe certain select clients because they don't want to lose that business. Others really fully embrace the product and they go on teaching and educating their reps about the product, and it really becomes a core part of their business. Where on that spectrum does UBS fall, Karina?
I would probably say somewhere in the middle. There's 3 ways that a client can get involved with options at UBS. First, they could have a brokerage account, and literally every transaction they'll discuss with their financial advisor. So every option trade, they get on the phone and talk through it. And that's something that they pay commission for. And I would say a bulk of our clients engage in options that way. The second way is they could say, my financial advisor, you don't need to call me. You take discretion. You trade the option strategies for me. That's a significantly smaller portion of our business. And then the other part is a third way to do it is the FA and the client, neither of them have discretion. They engage with a professional investment manager who will trade options, who will trade an entire portfolio of options for them on their behalf. So that's probably the second most popular way, but by far most are engaged through brokerage.
And obviously we're coming off the heels, and in many ways we're still in the middle of just insane, tumultuous, pick your adjective, times in the markets. Of course, last year we had the onset of the pandemic, the massive market sell-off, the explosion in volatility, the subsequent aggressive market rally, and all the other things that went on last year, the election, and so on and so forth. Everyone thought coming into this year it'd be a little bit quieter. So far, not so much. Been a pretty rock'em sock'em robots year as well. We're trying to get the pulse from all the different firms who come on, especially ones like yourself, Karina, that haven't been on in quite some time, of what this past year and change has been like for them through the lens of options. So try to paint a picture for our audience, if you can, of this last year and change. Again, exploding markets, exploding volatility. What kind of demand did you see for options? Were clients excited to use them? Do they want to embrace them more? Were they just terrified by the mad volatility in the markets and wanted to take their ball and go home? What were you seeing? What were your clients coming to you for during the height of the madness of the past year here, Karina?
I think I would say that 2018 was the toughest year for sure. We have, within my program, we have naked put writing, we've got iron condors, and a lot of those strategies did not fare too well in 2018. So that was really rough. I do think that was a significant learning lesson for a lot of our clients. A lot of them did reduce their exposure. Maybe clients who, may not have been the most ideal strategy for them, exited. So by the time we got to 2020 and we had, the major market disruption in the beginning of the year, I think, most of the clients were comfortable with the risk at that point. Some of the strategies we had on our platform were down as much as 20% in, March and April of 2020, and most of them rebounded quite nicely. And we did not really see a significant number of clients exiting at that point. So again, I think a lot of the lessons that were learned in 2018 sort of helped support us through the last year.
Interesting. So your clients cut their teeth, if you will, I'm assuming you're talking about call it what you will, the VIX apocalypse, the Volmageddon, the explosion of volatility in February of 2018. That really gave your clients a little bit of a taste of the fire. So when it came back aggressively last year, they weren't as scared, Karina.
Yes. Yep. February was definitely a learning lesson, but actually December of 2018, a lot of the strategies we have are volatility risk premium strategies, right? So conceptually, you're shorting the VIX and you're buying it back 30 days later at realized volatility. Usually there's, money to be had if you can short that VIX and buy it back. I think the volatility risk premium trade really got bit in December of 2018, where we had significant volatility spike from the second half of December. And then typically what happens, at least for vol risk premium strategies, after you have a big market disruption event, vol stays high for a while and you can kind of try to harvest that premium for several months, sort of make back, from the pain that you might have experienced. But in January 2019, it was like the market totally forgot that December was a bad month, and just like the VIX dropped significantly and that vol risk premium really dried up. So there wasn't an opportunity to make that premium back. And so, I think that was the big pain train for most of the iron condors and put writing and put spreads.
No, that's a great point, because everyone, including us, we tend to focus mostly on the beginning of 2018, which was the massive vol spike. Products a lot of our audience like to trade, like XIV went the way of the dodo. Trading firms blew out. So that made a lot of the headlines. But you're right, the latter half of that year also had some more aggressive sell-offs that tend to get forgotten now as everyone thinks about February. And you're right, December, I think Christmas Day actually was kind of the nadir of that year, as I recall. We had some crazy sell-offs going into the end of the year. So you're right. The latter portion of that year was not at all a quiet or smooth sailing thing like I think a lot of people remember it. But you kind of touched on my next question, which is something else I'm always fascinated about when it comes to advisors and the option space. Because like we said at the top of the show, every firm has their own use case, their own approach to options. It sounds like, if I'm reading between the lines here, Karina, that UBS falls more on the premium harvesting side. The short puts, and as you mentioned, iron condors, those are your primary strategies. What are the typical use cases for the clients when it comes to options at UBS?
So we do have a pretty large volatility risk premium platform. We also do cover call writing. We also have some strategies that are equity plus like income, so aspects of cover call writing, and some that do some put purchasing to protect them. So it definitely runs the gamut. My personal focus has been building out the volatility risk premium, the option, what we call options overlay strategies at UBS. So yeah, that's definitely been a big part of my focus for the last few years.
And no volatility at all over the last year or two, Karina. So you must have been pretty bored, I would imagine.
Definitely never, ever bored, ever.
Well, one of the other big stories and big narratives of 2020, and it has continued into 2021, has been just the explosion of retail. I mean, we've seen growth in the options market in various ways for decades, but this past year, it really was on another level. It really just was beyond anyone, I think, what anyone could have anticipated. You know, we saw orders of magnitude more volume, orders of magnitude more traders coming in, a lot of them on the smaller side of the spectrum. People have loosely categorized them as, you know, the Robin Hoods, the one lots, call them what you will. I know that's not an area of the space you directly connect with. It's more a few layers of abstraction for you through the advisors and things, but that's been an interesting trend. Did you see something similar in aggregate over there at UBS over the course of the past year? More clients coming in for the options product, and perhaps smaller accounts than you would traditionally associate with options, all starting to wake up and ask about options, Karina?
Most definitely. I work very, very closely with my colleagues in the capital market side, and this literally has been the busiest year that they've had probably in the last decade as far as clients, expressing interest, looking for education, wanting to trade. All of that stuff has really consumed a lot of our capital markets and our trading strategists' time. We've also seen, like really big clients. Even I've had many, many client calls where, it takes a little bit of discovery, but very wealthy clients looking for options education. And when we get down to it, the clients are looking actually for some of the trading that they've been reading about. A lot of them like to write puts. Premiums have been pretty juicy in the put space. So that actually there's been a significant amount of interest in using put writing as an entry point for broader stock portfolios. So again, definitely not a boring year.
No, not at all. And that's interesting. You mentioned that they're gravitating towards the puts because a lot of what we've seen talking to other firms and you just hearing, throughout the space is that a lot of these new entrants to the space, in particular, the smaller accounts, are just gravitating towards upside calls and just gobbling them up all day. Hence, not just the GameStops and the AMCs, but the crazy, insane levels of skew we're seeing in a lot of these names. It sounds like you're seeing something a little bit different over there at UBS. You're seeing, maybe I wouldn't say a more sophisticated clientele, but a clientele that is leaning a little bit more towards the premium harvesting side there, Karina.
Yeah, we've done a lot of research, with our CIO partners around, opportunities and ways to enter the equity markets. And like our research has really said that put writing, has been a good opportunity. So I think a lot of kind of our own doing and that we've been marketing and talking about it. But you're right. Like it's mostly with the more sophisticated clients. I personally don't speak to many financial advisors that have, the more retail clients, just because the program I run is definitely geared toward clients that have a significant amount of net worth. So, and
I know you just attended the big virtual OIC conference. Hopefully it'll be in person again next year. We could all meet up again at the conference, but a lot of interesting topics on display and on discussion there at the conference a few weeks ago. What was it that brought you to the conference, Karina? Were there any interesting topics or discussions or trends that really resonated with you?
So I think it's really interesting to hear a completely different perspective on options trading. Like I said, I run a investment program, so I'm much less in the weeds of actually trading and what are the trends there. I think, it's always an enjoyable conference to sort of learn the other side of things, to hear people talk about their expectations for volatility, to learn about all the product expansion that's happening. I mean, that actually is really interesting to me because we're always looking for new and interesting ideas to bring our clients. So that's really what it was. And it'd be awesome if we could do it in person next year.
That would be great. One of the other interesting topics on the advisor side, when we have a whole program dedicated to the advisors and option space. In fact, we'll be recording that in a couple hours here today. So, but one of the more frequent discussion points we get from our audience and from participants in that space is, quite frankly, why aren't there more advisors using options out there? We've heard a lot of excuses, a lot of reasons, a lot of fingers being pointed as to what the reasons they think are that more advisors out there in the broad wealth management space, when they're out there sitting down with a client, doing their typical run through, how old are you? What's your risk tolerance? Okay, here's your 60-40 breakdown, or maybe here's your 60-30-10 if you're really super aggressive. How come more of those people aren't also incorporating options into that discussion? I'm curious for you, Karina, you've been involved in this side of the space for quite some time. Why do you think outside of UBS, options penetration is still so small in the advisor community?
That is an excellent question and something I ask myself almost every day. I think there's a couple reasons. It's harder, at least at the broker dealers, to do options business, just because there's a significant amount of paperwork. And then we also have working against us is sort of antiquated technology systems that don't really support, a lot of these systems were built in the 90s. And so the ease of client onboarding and adding option capabilities onto accounts, it's just not there. It's hard. It's hard work for the FAs. They're not excited to bring a lot of paperwork to clients. So I think that's the first thing. And that's something I'm working on with my program, is to really, make the onboarding process much easier. So that's tech is one. And then the other thing I think is, honestly, it's education, right? I know there's a lot of stuff out there, but, from my team's perspective, we're constantly working on, good content, education for FAs to sort of absorb how these things work and how options can be advantageous additions to portfolios. In fact, in the past 3 years, I've actually written and launched 3 FA options-based training modules. So there's a huge focus on education. Also, like, the firms are a little bit, I think, nervous about the complexities around options. So they're kind of making us put a lot of belts and suspenders around these types of strategies. But, better tech and better content and education is probably what's going to help get us there.
Those are certainly two of the main pain points, the main stumbling blocks that a lot of our guests and our advisors option program have cited as well. That's why that program still focuses, many years after its launch, still focuses on education. There still is a great need for education there in the financial advisor space. Unfortunately, that music means we've come to the end of our sojourn here on the Options Insider radio program. But don't worry, listeners, if you're excited to talk advisors and options, we'll be back in a little over an hour to do exactly that with some great guests going to break down all the action in the world of advisors and options, get into some of the aforementioned education and a whole bunch more. But before we go, Karina, I should say, we like to leave our audience wanting more. So if there are some interesting new initiatives, new developments you guys have up your sleeve when it comes to options and advisors that perhaps you think will interest our audience, now is the time. The floor is yours, Matt.
Oh, thank you. I kind of just echo what I've said earlier. Areas of focus are going to be lots of new product offerings. We're excited to see the kind of development in the space, technology expansion, and to continue working on that education front.
And if folks either are UBS clients or perhaps they want to become UBS clients and learn more about your options offerings, where should they go? What should they do, Karina?
They can speak to a UBS financial advisor. Go to ubs.com, and there's a search tool that allows you to find a financial advisor in your neighborhood.
There you go. Pretty straightforward. ubs.com. And of course, it'll be straightforward when we're back again in a little over an hour to talk more about advisors and options. And of course, we're back again tomorrow, Education Wednesday, with a double dose of both OPR and Options Bootcamp, two great educational shows. A lot of the advisors should probably be checking out there as well. Thursday, of course, we're back again, episode 2 of the Option Block, episode 1001, actually. And TWIFO, This Week in Futures Options. Friday, Volatility Views. Then it all kicks off again on Monday, episode 1 of the Option Block. And of course, the Crypto Rundown, all the way through to another interview Tuesday and another episode of Options Insider Radio.
You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions@theoptionsinsider.com.